I'll tell you what, if you ever want to know how fast a neighbor can go from good morning to summoning the fury of HOA hell, just leave a pile of snow in the wrong place. No, really picture this. It's 7 in the morning. I'm standing in my driveway, half awake, coffee in hand, admiring what I thought was a perfectly normal pile of snow. And then I see Margaret Patterson coming at me from across the street, storming, honestly, like she's on a mission from hell itself. You ever see someone move with so much purpose at dawn? That's when you know you're in trouble. Let me back up a second before you think I'm just some guy who enjoys causing chaos with a snowblower. My name's Henry Carson. 6 months before all this, I'd moved into Pinewood Heights, a neat little subdivision up in Boulder, Colorado. At first glance, it looked like your standard slice of suburbia. Rows of 2-story houses, lawns trimmed to within an inch of their lives, and of course those smug little proud HOA community signs stuck everywhere just in case you forgot. If you ever see those signs, take my advice, run. I should have, but you know how it goes. First-time homeowner, big dreams, blind spots to red flags waving right in your face. And at the top of the neighborhood food chain, Margaret. She was the HOA president, the kind of woman whose haircut could stop traffic and who always looked like she was about to scold a department store for running out of her brand of perfume. Short blonde hair with highlights so bright you needed sunglasses, reading glasses dangling from a chain business suit for checking the mailbox. You get the picture? Margaret didn't just run the HOA, she ruled it. Her tools of power, passive-aggressive notes, and a stack of violation notices that never seemed to run out. That morning, after 2 hours of clearing 14 inches of snow, which by the way is nothing for Boulder in January, I'd piled the stuff right at the edge of my driveway. 4 feet high, maybe 6 feet wide. Not blocking anything, not in anyone's way, it was just snow. She came marching over, voice dripping with that fake sweet tone. Henry, we need to talk about that monstrosity you've created. Oh, come on. I looked at my snow pile, then at her. You mean the snow pile, Margaret? She even did the air quotes. That enormous eyesore is violating at least 3 HOA regulations. Apparently in Pinewood Heights, snow could be visual pollution. I wish I was kidding. So there I was standing in pajamas trying to explain the concept of it'll melt. She wasn't having any of it. The rules exist for a reason, Henry. If everyone did what you did, this place would look like a disaster zone. She wanted the pile gone now. And I, you can probably guess, was already pretty tired of her nonsense. In the few months I'd lived there, she'd cited me for my garbage cans being visible too long, for owning a garden hose that was the wrong shade of green, and for parking my truck at the wrong angle. Honestly, I was one lawn gnome away from getting a citation for cultural insensitivity. Margaret, I'm not moving the snow. It's on my property. It's not blocking anything. It's going to melt. This is ridiculous. Her face turned red. This is the law. She threatened a violation notice and a fine. I told her, do what you need to do, and turned to go inside. You ever get that feeling where you know someone's going to make your day harder, but you just don't have the energy to fight right then? That was me. I went inside, finished my coffee, tried to shake it off. I had work to do. Remote software dev, living the dream, and Margaret wasn't going to ruin my day. Or so I thought. About an hour later, sirens. First I figured someone else's problem. Then they got louder. 2 police cars parked right in front of my house, lights flashing. There's Margaret, arms flailing, pointing at my snow pile. No way, I thought, no way she actually called the cops. She did. I pulled on my shoes and headed outside, heart pounding like I'd robbed a bank instead of used a snowblower. Margaret was giving the officers the full show claims about community standards, public safety, me refusing to cooperate. The officers looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. The older one, Officer Martinez, just sighed, looking at my snow pile like she was considering an alternate career. Mr. Carson, we got a 911 call about a public safety hazard. This is the hazard in question. If by hazard you mean a totally normal pile of snow from my driveway, yeah. Margaret jumped in. It's not just snow, it's a hazard. What if a child runs into it? What if it blocks someone's view? Officer Martinez stopped her. Madam, let me handle this. The other officer, Chen, actually walked around the pile, kicked it a little. I watched him thinking, please let this be the most ridiculous thing you deal with today. Officer Martinez turned to Margaret. Did you witness an actual emergency? Is there a threat to life or property? Well, no, but there could be. That was her answer. Martinez's patience was running out. Madam, what's your name? Margaret Patterson, HOA president. She started, but Martinez cut her off, explaining that 911 is for real emergencies. You can't use emergency services for HOA disputes. That's actually a violation of state law. Margaret's jaw dropped. I don't think she'd ever been told no by anyone with a badge before. Officer Martinez wrote her a citation for misusing emergency services, $300. Honestly, I thought Margaret was going to explode. She just turned pale, took the ticket, and stormed back across the street. Officer Martinez turned to me, apologetic. Your snow pile looks fine to me. Just don't block the sidewalk. She gave me her card. If Mrs. Patterson keeps this up, call us on the non-emergency line, please. Officer Chen even complimented the neatness of my pile. I watched them drive off, lights off this time, just soaking it all in. Let me tell you, I'd never felt such relief and petty satisfaction at the same time. Margaret, the HOA president, getting fined for trying to use the police as her personal goon squad. Justice. If you've ever lived under the thumb of a petty tyrant, you know how sweet that moment is. But I wasn't naive enough to think it was over. 3 days later, there it was, a violation notice in my mailbox, official HOA letterhead signed by Margaret herself. $500 in fines now for the snow pile, my unapproved front door wreath mailbox being 2 inches too far left, and this was my favorite lawn, not properly maintained. The lawn, mind you, was under a foot of snow. I knew exactly what this was, Margaret's revenge. Couldn't use the cops, so now she was coming after me with every bylaw she could find, and some she probably made up. In Colorado, HOAs can get nasty. If you don't pay fines, they can slap liens on your house. But I'm not the rolling over type, so I did my homework. Dug into state HOA law, read every bylaw, every statute. Turns out they can't fine you arbitrarily or enforce rules selectively. They have to give notice, follow Procedure Act in good faith. Margaret's notice dated the same day as the police incident. Retaliation, pure and simple. I wrote a letter, cited chapter and verse, called her out for bad faith. Said I wouldn't pay, and if they pushed it, I'd countersue for harassment. Dropped it in her mailbox and waited. The next morning, phone rings. It's Deborah Mitchell, HOA vice president. Never met her before. She cuts right to it. Henry, I'm calling about the incident with Margaret and the violation notice. Most of the board didn't know what happened until we saw your letter. We're concerned about how Margaret's handled things. She apologized. Said they'd void all violations and fines and were planning a serious talk with Margaret. Now you might think this is where it ends. But there's always one more twist, right? 2 weeks later, special HOA meeting at the community center. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won out. Place was packed. Margaret at the front table looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Deborah runs the meeting, lays out a new plan. Violation notices now need board approval. There's an appeals process, a full review of bylaws, the works. Then she drops the bomb. Margaret has resigned as HOA president. The room erupts. Some cheer, some gasp. Margaret just sits there red-faced, staring at the floor. After that, people start sharing stories how Margaret harassed them about flowers, garage doors, even the color of their cars. Turns out I wasn't the first, just the first to say enough. Neighbors came up to thank me. Me, the snow pile guy. I downplayed it, but I won't lie, it felt good. And then something unexpected happened. 3 days after the meeting, Margaret came by my house. I thought, great round two. But she looked different. Tired, not angry. She apologized. Told me she'd let being HOA president go to her head, that she'd hurt a lot of people. She even admitted the 911 call was wrong. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me was still mad, but seeing her like that, well, people surprise you sometimes. I told her I appreciate the apology. For what it's worth, I think you did care about the neighborhood. You just went about it the wrong way. She nodded, said she was stepping away, going to volunteer, maybe finally be helpful without being a tyrant. She smiled, and for the first time it looked real. After that, things in Pinewood Heights actually changed. Deborah became president, reasonable fare. The HOA started organizing neighborhood cleanups and social events instead of issuing citations for invisible infractions. People started acting like well neighbors. Tom and Linda, the couple next door, invited me for dinner. The Johnsons down the street pulled me into their poker night. Even Rachel, the single mom across the way, started waving and chatting when we bumped into each other. Spring came. I found myself looking around thinking this is what I'd wanted from the start, a community, not a battleground. The lesson. Sometimes you have to stand up even over something as dumb as a snow pile. If I'd caved, Margaret would have kept on terrorizing the whole block. By refusing to back down, things changed, and it kept rippling out. Our HOA reforms caught the attention of other neighborhoods. Deborah got calls from HOAs all over asking for advice. We put together a best practices guide, treat residents like adults, focus on what matters, keep the rules in perspective. The Denver paper picked it up. Suddenly, our little drama became the spark for change in other places. Months later, at the next winter's first snow, I was out there again, coffee in hand, making a new snow pile. Tom came over, grinned. Another historic monument. I laughed. Just clearing my driveway. We toasted our travel mugs. To snow piles, to standing up for what's right, especially when it seems silly. I never set out to start a movement. I just didn't want to get pushed around. But sometimes the fights that matter most are the ones you least expect. Standing up over a snow pile turned out to be about more than snow. It was about the principle of not letting petty authority ruin a good thing. That plaque they put at the end of my driveway. At first I thought it was a joke. It reads on this spot, Henry Carson made a snow pile and sparked a movement for reasonable HOA governance. I still laugh every time I look at it. But you know what? It reminds me and everyone else here that you don't have to accept being bullied even if it's just over something small. Sometimes that's exactly where you need to draw the line. So let me ask you, if it were your driveway, your snow pile, your Margaret Patterson, would you stand your ground, or would you move the snow and hope she leaves you alone? I'm glad I stood up, but I want to know, what would you have done? Have you ever faced down someone in power over something that seemed small but felt huge? Tell me. I bet I'm not the only one with a story like this.